Good evening and welcome to the City Council meeting of August 17th, 2021. I will call the meeting to order. I am presiding this evening as Mayor Pro Tem in Mayor Severin's absence. We will have an invocation led by Pastor Ron Lawler from Family Bible, and then I will lead you in the Pledge of Allegiance.
If you'd like to join me in prayer. Our Father, we are very thankful as always for the opportunity to live in such a beautiful city and beautiful environment. We thank you for the privileges we enjoy and the provision we have. Do ask for your special blessing tonight on the City Council members, that you will grant them wisdom and discernment as they work through the agenda, that decisions will be made wisely and effectively. We do pray for all the rest of the city workers who keep our city running so beautifully. And we do ask for resolution when it comes to the matter of COVID, that you'll continue to bless and help us to bring that to an end. Pray these things in Christ's name. Amen.
Will the city clerk please call roll?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Councilmember Heisen.
Present.
Councilmember Servadius.
Present.
Councilmember Wassinger.
Present.
Councilmember Wiesner.
Present.
Councilmember Mack.
Present.
Councilmember Goebel.
Present.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. All council members are accounted for.
Hooray. Are there any suggested changes to the agenda? Hearing none, the agenda is approved as presented. We'll go on to citizens' comment period. Citizens may comment on subjects of interest not listed on the agenda or items listed on the consent agenda. Citizens may also comment on corresponding agenda items. In this hybrid meeting format, citizens can attend and give comment in person or via online comment form at www.ocarver.org/public comment or email the city clerk at jlindsay@ocarver.org prior to 5 p.m. on the day of the meeting, or call and leave a voicemail after 5 p.m. on the Friday preceding the meeting and prior to 5 p.m. on the day of the meeting. When leaving a voicemail for public comment, state your first and last name clearly and limit comments to 3 minutes. Any public comments received since our last council meeting were forwarded to council. We received one public comment we will display as part of the meeting's record. We will now move to the consent agenda. Staff has presented the list consent agenda items, all of which were included in the meeting packet. Are there any objections or changes to the consent agenda?
Mayor Pro Tem, I'd like to remove item 4D, please.
4D, all right? Thank you, Mr. Wiesner. Anyone else?
I move to approve consent agenda items A through F with the exclusion of D. Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilman Servadius and a second by Councilman Wiesner to approve A through F except for 4D. All those in favor say aye, please. Raise your hand.
Aye.
Councilmember Heisen's hand is raised.
All right, and there's none opposed, so that passes unanimously. All right, 4D, Mr. Wiesner, please.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I have maybe, is Dawn on? Yeah, there's Dawn, I see. Dawn, I just kind of want to understand, I guess, a little bit more about the maintenance involved in this. It sounds like that this is all pretty much labor, that there's not a lot of material or equipment involved. Would that be a correct statement?
No, sir. It's roughly 40, 60. The new scope includes pruning of all of those native plant beds. There's roughly 2.2 acres of them that have not been pruned. And then, so that wasn't in the original scope. And then another addition is the use of herbicides in our planter beds, both pre-emergent and post-emergent. Prior to this, there was no chemicals used for weed control in those beds, and so we've struggled with weed control. So those are the two main items that were added to that scope of work, which caused it to go significantly higher than the previous contract.
And is that scope of work done mostly performed in the summer, or is this like a year-round activity?
And it's performed year-round. It's just a considerable amount of labor that I don't currently have within my budget to perform in a timely fashion. It hasn't been performed since the park was turned over because of that.
Well, and you can imagine just what I'm trying to get to. I'm just trying to figure out if a summer laborer would not be a better route for us. But obviously, if the work's being performed year round, that doesn't make a lot of sense. And then just trying to understand, if this is all labor, but obviously if you're saying 60-40, I'm assuming that means 40% of this, roughly $13,000 of the contract bid is what's to be expected to be expended on the fertilizer and those type of components?
Yeah, fertilizer and weed control. Additionally, because in this first year, because none of those shrubs have been serviced in 2 years, it's going to take a lot longer than it normally would. So in ensuing contracts, we can probably get that price dropped back down. So for this annual contract, we really needed to cover that additional cost. The other thing is these were costs that were discussed during the initial operational budget before the park was turned over to the city, and we didn't get the additional staffing that we were going to need for the park. And so I'm just trying to find a creative way to get this work done. Those shrubs can't really be trimmed by a summer help. You need somebody that knows what they're doing to do selective pruning in there. Otherwise, you're going to end up just hacking all the shrubs down, and it will look really unsightly.
So I guess in the long run, obviously, if we didn't get you the staff to do this is what we get, right? But I guess if nothing else, what I want you to do, maybe Don, for us is kind of keep track of this a little bit for us, right? So that we can understand as a council, obviously I've been looking more and more at these outside labor contracts when we get them, and often it does turn out that it's the right way to go. It doesn't make any sense to bring on staff and the expensive staff and try to budget for that additional staff to do either a short-term job or a job that has a certain talent set that would be difficult
Yeah.
to fill, right? So I guess
Right.
this is just one of those I want to plant in the back of our heads, in the back of your head, that as we move forward, obviously is something we could do in-house if we in fact give you guys the budget to be able to hire the personnel to be able to do it.
So I would much rather hire somebody to do it that I could directly supervise rather than a contractor. But totally understand what you're trying to ask me, and that's just, SOP for me, is to look at ways to try to do this within budget and still maintain the aims of the park division.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. That's all I have for questions. Thanks, Don.
Mm-hmm.
Ms. Goebel?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I just have a question, and this could totally be not in, I guess you might not know the answer to this, but does this contract include the dugouts and the baseball fields, or kind of the surrounding areas going around the perimeter of the baseball fields down at Windjammer Park?
No, ma'am, it doesn't. There's two reasons why those fields look the way they do. Number one is they were allowed to fallow all last year because we didn't have Little League, so there was very little work done by either the great volunteers at Little League or the Parks Division. And secondly, we were working on that notorious bridge throughout most of the springtime and didn't get that done. But as far as the resolution goes, we have Fall League, Little League Baseball happening starting on September 1st. And between now and then, my staff will be in there to get that cleaned up. And I'm already working with administration to come up with some strategic plans to deal with that moving forward.
That's awesome to hear. Well, if you need help rallying volunteers in the community to help, clean up the baseball fields, I think I know some people that would be eager to help out with that project. So thank you for answering that question. I appreciate it.
Uh-huh.
Anyone else? Is there a motion to approve this to the agenda?
Mayor Pro Tem, I move that we approve item 4D on the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilman Wiesner and a second by Councilman Wassinger to add 4D to the consent agenda. All in favor, please raise your hand.
Councilmember Heisen's hand is raised.
All right, thank you. That's unanimous, and we shall move on. Thank you, everyone. Mayor's comments. Upcoming events. 29th Annual Challenge Series Gravity Car Races, Saturday, August 28th. Barrington Drive from Island Thrift to Dutch Made Laundry, 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. It's always exciting to go out there and watch the kids with their little homemade cars that they have to weigh them and balance them. It's a fun morning. Ochoa Music Festival, Friday, September 3rd through Sunday, September 5th, Pioneer Way. You can go online to their website and find out who's coming, and it's always a great event for everyone, and it's free. Military Appreciation Picnic, Saturday, September the 11th, next to the Chamber of Commerce. This is, I think, like the 15th year now, or 16th. We missed a year, so this is always exciting, a way for everyone in the community. It's a picnic for everyone, but it's also to show our appreciation to our servicemen and women and their families. I can remember some kids coming up and going, "This picnic's for me, Mom." And they said they've never lived anywhere where the community was so welcoming. So this is an important event for everyone to be one city in one place. And Whidbey Island Marathon is on Sunday, September 12th, finish line in Windjammer Park. Any other comments from council?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. First off, I'd like to thank Lexi Ochoa for volunteering for the Parks Board. always the unsung heroes of our community who step up and take on those positions. And, you know, they have meetings after meetings, and they get lots of information to digest just like we do, and they do it all for the good of the community. So thank you for that, Lexi. Secondly, I'd like to ask staff, you know, I see that we've got Marin Woods, looks like it's firing up out on Swantown. Looks like we've got, you know, Howard's Point development moving along. We've had a recent sale of the Gary Oaks project. So I think it'd be great for council to maybe just get a kind of a mini update from staff, you know, as to the status of these new housing developments, where we think they are permitting wise, you know, best guess, right, as to when we could see that some permitting milestones could be reached, and if they've got any input from the developers as to the developer timeline, I think it just would help all of us. You know, we get asked a lot about this. This is a subject that's important to our community. You know, having workforce housing has been something we've been struggling with, and it looks like we're right on the cusp of you know, actually getting some of this stuff done. And so I'm kind of excited about it, and I'd like to get, you know, maybe a written update from staff involving what developments we've got going on, where they're at in permitting, and some timelines as best they could guess. And while we're at it, I'd also like a little bit of feedback from staff on the model housing ordinance that we had passed. It just kind of slips my mind as to where we ended up with that. My understanding is we moved it forward to model it after some of our towns, Marysville, Arlington, et cetera. I just want to make sure that council's wishes were followed up there, that we've took care of the issue involving the bonds with the tear downs. I just want to be prepared. Obviously, if we've got these developments coming online, the first thing all these guys are going to want to do is get a model home built, and I just want to make sure that we're not dealing with that at the last minute again, that we're getting ahead of that curve. So in that update, if staff could provide that feedback for me, I'd really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Julie.
Councilmember Heisen's hand is raised.
Oh, I was just going to make a comment. Is our director, David McCool, on? Can he possibly do that update at our workshop? If that's not too soon to ask? That would be good to have those two items.
He's not with
Okay.
us in the meeting at this time, Mayor Pro Tem, but we will certainly ask.
All right, thank you. All right, Councilman Hayes.
Thank you. I was hoping if it's okay with the fire chief, Chief Merrill, not to put you completely on the spot, but would you be willing or able to speak to the public comment that we received tonight from Mr. Cardinal about I think it was the tree debris and that concern? And if not, that's fine. You can follow up with me later.
Speak to that. I'd like to speak a lot, so we're good. We have had conversations with Mr. Thompson. We've gone up to the site on numerous occasions. We did get him to do a 72-inch wide path as far as the fire break goes between the mobile home park and his site. One of the problems that we run into, first off, is if he's up there cutting, there's that potential that all the rocks that are in that ground, the cutter that he would use would create a spark, which would create a fire that we're trying to reduce to have happen. So it's kind of a double-edged sword in that one. Secondly, once all that stuff gets cut down, it becomes dry tinder, and we've got to rake it and then get it out of there as well. One of the other problems and I know they're very concerned at the mobile home park, is that those large piles of debris that's there. And people have said, well, why don't you just chip it? Well, if we chip it, then it creates exothermic energy, which gives us a problem that it's going to have spontaneous heating, because those small chips are going to heat, they're going to decompose, they're going to create their own oxygen, they're going to create a fire. The large logs, stumps, and everything don't do that like the small chip would do. You know, ideally it'd be nice to get all that stuff off of the property, but he's got plans for all that to chip it, to use it in his project itself. So I thoroughly am concerned about the fires up there. We know that our prevailing wind is from the south-southwest. So should a fire occur, it's actually going to go away from the mobile home park and not towards the mobile home park 99% of the time. There is that chance that the wind comes out of the east. We do monitor that. Chief Buxton goes up at least 3 times a week and monitors what's going on up there just to be sure. So we are keeping a close eye on it. And we are concerned about it as well as the mobile home tenants. So, Councilmember Heisen, does that answer what you're looking for?
It does. Thank you. I'm happy to hear that you're keeping an eye on it, and I want to make sure that if the developer has any responsibility in terms of mitigating any hazards, that he's staying on top of those as well. And it sounds like he's keeping that material on hand for a specific purpose. So as long as we're keeping an eye on it and everybody's doing what they're supposed to be doing, then that makes me happy. Thank you.
Okay, great, thanks.
Thank you, Chief. Appreciate it. Councilman Servadius.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Well, let's keep the tree trimming theme rolling. We all received an email last week from, I hope I say this correct, Mr. Scolaricus, asking about trimming an alder, I believe it's an alder tree that is growing across the street from his house. These people are my neighbors also, but there's a tree growing that's on city property right there in the right-of-way, and they've asked for permission to trim that at their expense at the power line level. And so I reached out, had a couple of brief conversations with staff. At a cursory glance, it doesn't appear that there's a problem with that. We as a council don't have a policy if someone requests to trim a tree or do something that's a city-owned asset. So the direction I got was it should come before council and we would need to give a letter of approval or authorization. So with that, I was going to make a motion to have staff prepare that, and barring any maybe it's a Gary oak that looks like an alder in disguise or an aspen, but I don't think it is. But barring any unforeseen problems that would make that not favorable to trim, I think that that's something that we can certainly do for these citizens. So I'll make the motion then if we'd like to have further discussion. But I move to instruct staff to place a letter of approval for Mr. Scolaricus on our 721 consent agenda. And I'm happy to reread that, Julie, if you'd like. So I move to instruct staff to place a letter of approval, from the council obviously, for Mr. Scolaricus on our 721 consent agenda.
Councilmember, would you spell his name, please?
Yeah, it's in the email. I believe it's S-K-O. Let me just pull up the email. Do you? Thank you.
S-K-O-L-A-R-I-K-I-S.
Thank you.
Second?
Thank you for that. I was just going to call for it. Okay, we have a motion and a second to instruct staff to come up with a letter of approval to trim this alder tree. We think it's an alder tree under the power lines. Further questions? Yes.
I'm sorry, Joel, that date, did you say meeting in July? Or did you mean or I just want to make sure.
Good catch. That should have been 8/21 for the clerk, sorry. And if I could just touch base, obviously, the lettering implied that they would do it at their cost. From a city standpoint, I'm sure we could throw something in there that protects us from any liability that if a branch falls on somebody or something happens that, the city's not liable for whatever the attorney says. Thank you.
Councilmember, just for clarification, would that be the September 21st meeting?
Yes, 9/21, September. I need to hire you guys to keep me on track.
You want to borrow my glasses? They might work better than yours. Julie, will that give staff plenty of time and also to have it in the agenda packet for 9/21 September meeting?
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem.
All right, thank you. More discussion? Jim Weezer.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Just curious, I don't remember in the letter whether it's stated or not, but has anybody looked at the tree to make sure that the trimming's not gonna kill it or damage it? I mean, I guess we could cover that in the letter of authorization, right? That obviously we're using some sort of a qualified arborist that, is gonna trim it in such a fashion that, we're not gonna be damaging it. I'd hate to go up there and see 4 sticks sitting out of the side of the tree after it's all done and that's it, so.
Good point.
Thank you.
Further discussion? Okay, I'll call for the question. All in favor of this motion? To approve a letter for council to sign to give Scholaricus on their expense to trim this, we think it's an alder tree, but it will be expensive, and not to damage it by someone reputable to do it. All in favor, raise your hand.
Councilmember Heisen's hand is raised.
All right, thank you. It is unanimous. Thank you very much. Any other comments? All right, Councilman Servadius.
Thank you. Just real quick, this weekend, tour to Whidbey. Was that in your report? Did I miss it? Okay, tour to Whidbey's all over the road, so there's going to be a lot of cyclists on the road this weekend. Please be careful for them. And just one other comment that I had, I'm sure Mr. Oborn is on here somewhere. Mr. Oborn, you've sent out some informational emails, which I very much appreciated, to new candidates or candidates in general. And I had replied to you because I've gotten a couple of inquiries regarding if we could send out an email about signs in the right-of-ways. Did you receive that email?
Yes, I did, and I forwarded to our code enforcement who's handling that situation.
I'm sorry, I lost the second part of that.
I forwarded to our code enforcement, code compliance officer, and he's handling the issue.
Oh, I was just asking for an email informing candidates so everyone's aware of what the rules are. I don't know if there's something we need to enforce yet.
Mr. Oborn, did you hear that?
Yeah, duly noted.
Okay, so my request is, I don't know if most of the new candidates are aware that in order to place signs in the right-of-way, you need to have the adjoining property owner's permission. So fairly innocent mistake, but I know that there's a lot of signs going up, and I already had one complaint from someone. So just I think it'd be good for everyone to know. Thank you. That's all, Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah. And our code enforcement will handle complaints. So if anybody has any complaints, go ahead and forward it to him and he'll handle it.
All right, thank you, and thank you for sending out an email like you did on how they could get classes and things like that on what to expect in the job. So that would be nice for signage. Thank you, Mr. Oborn.
Thank you.
Mr. Mack.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Yes, Administrator Orborn, I agree with Councilmember Servadius. A couple years ago, I had to make some changes on my sign. I was reminded as to where they're supposed to go and where they're not supposed to go by some property owners and some other things. So it would be most helpful if you could make sure and follow up that that information does get to these new candidates, so we don't have a lot of issues with the citizens, and they know we're on top of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mack. All right, number 8, contracts and agreements. A, business licensing service agreement with Department of Revenue. Our finance director, Mr. Goldman, and our utilities officer, manager Sunny Wolf, will present this agreement, please.
Good evening, members of the City Council. It's David Goldman, Finance Director. I'd like to introduce our utilities office manager, Sunny Wolf. She's done extensive research and has numerous discussions with the state and other cities regarding the Department of Revenue's Business License Service program, and I know she'll do an excellent job presenting this item to Council and also sharing her screen.
Okay, let me share screen here. Okay, can everybody see that? Okay.
Yes.
All right. So I'll be overviewing our upcoming partnership with the Department of Revenue's Business License Services. Along with that will be a couple of topics. The purpose of the contract, our initial agreement that just has to be signed, some context on the topic, the benefits of doing this, and some future opportunities we'll have to collaborate throughout the implementation process, cost, of course, and today's suggested motion. official purpose of the contract, it's just a standard contract, which is establishing terms for how the GOR BLS program will act as our agent to collect and process and disperse information, licenses, and fees that relate to our current business licensing process. So this initial contract is non-negotiable. That said, it is really the only thing that is non-negotiable. Everything else moving forward will be open for us to discuss and negotiate. Some background, and I guess I'll start with where it began. This all kicked off in 2018. We were originally given an option to participate in one of two programs. We could have partnered with Department of Revenue's BLS program, or we could have partnered with a company called Local. We had until July 1st, 2020 for the first deadline, and July 1st, 2021 for the second. There are other cities around us that did choose to go with Local, like Bellevue, Everett, Seattle went with them. We are defaulting to the Department of Revenue, so that will be who we partner with. That said, there are a ton of cities that have already partnered with them. There's 175 cities in Washington. Everyone in black on the screen is already partnered. And some people close by that we've been reaching out and talking to. Bainbridge is our main contact, but Anacortes has been with Department of Revenue for a while. Burlington, Mount Vernon is there. And everyone in red is slotted for future city partners. We're coupled up with several other cities to go live for winter 2022. In Benton City, LaConner, Langley, Nooksack, Sumas, Twist, Winthrop, and Woodland. Hope I pronounced those correctly.
Sonny, could you be a
And
little
then-
closer to your microphone, please? It's sometimes you move, it sounds in and out.
Oh,
So thank you, I appreciate it.
can you hear me now?
Yes?
Yes? Okay. Okay. So benefits, we'll have some operational efficiencies coming up. We currently, our cashiers process the entire thing from sending out the renewal notices, getting their accounts built, we manage it, collect payment for it. So all of that will be handled by the Department of Revenue. So that will help a lot, especially in the utilities division. We'll have increased compliance. The city of Bainbridge is one of our main contacts, and they were really excited about their increased compliance, mostly because it increased their revenues. So we don't really have a system in place right now to get the compliance that we will have with when it's partnered with the state. They the people who want to get a business license with the state will simultaneousm have to get the city one right alongside it. So it'll be a lot easier for business owners to kind of have a one-stop shop as well. The code revisions are recommended, and that's our next city council workshop item. So we'll be able to take a look at what they're suggesting. Most of their suggestions have more to do with aligning our language with what the state has, just so customers don't get, business owners aren't confused, so everything's more aligned. But we'll be able to look over all the changes and decide how we want to move forward. We will have to decide how we're going to do our endorsements, because they will not be handling our endorsements. So that's like our taxi cab endorsement, entertainment endorsements, the mobile food truck endorsements. We were already discussing how to better facilitate those anyway, so this will just give us the opportunity to move forward with that. Of course, we have tons of other cities and their business license structures that we can use as examples as we move forward. And we'll need to develop a multi-department approval system for how we're going to approve these licenses and endorsements. Again, that was something we were already working with development services, so this will just move all of that forward. Okay, costs. The implementation process will not cost us anything. There any and all costs incurred by Department of Revenue for the city, including any and all travel related expenses, that'll be absorbed. After that, if we have any ad hoc informational reports that we request, or if we want to change something after the implementation process is done, then that would incur a cost. In order to move forward, the motion today is to authorize the mayor to sign the business licensing service agreement, which would initiate our next steps. And that is about it. I hope you guys can still hear me okay. Are there any questions?
Council, any questions or comments? Councilman Wiesner.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I just have a comment in the fact that this is kind of a no-brainer. The reality is this is going to make it an easier process for our businesses to get started. It makes it a one-stop shop. I know that I've got business license in other cities where I've been able to utilize this sign up to create my business license versus going there to the DOR site, creating my business license, and having to walk into the city to get my business license here. The other thing is I think it will make everything fairer for everybody. We currently have businesses that are able to operate in the city without business licenses because just the way the system currently is. Once you get the DOR license, you can operate in the state, and obviously you can end up operating in the city and not have one, and it's not fair to all the merchants in our city who do pay their business license fee and take that out each year. So, it levels the playing field. I think it's certainly a plus for the businesses. It is easier to sign up and get that license. I don't necessarily think every business is trying to get out from under it, but I think a lot of businesses don't understand, what cities have an additional business license that's required. So this takes care of that whole compliance issue, and I think it's a great job on this, Sonny, and I look forward to getting this implemented. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Comments? I have some, Sonny. I've worked at AWC, and they weren't a big proponent of this, but it got passed in 2018. I do know that with the DOL, you're right, it will not cost us. The cost will be incurred by the business, and right now it's kind of set at $11. So they can come in for $11 and get one license for the state and fill out the applications for the different cities, or they can do, 11 of them. If they come back at a different month and want to add one, then they're going to pay the $11 again. But each city is unique, and that's why AWC wanted to keep it local. So before they finish the update process, if we want to look at what they're requiring now on their application and what we have on ours, we can add city addendums that fit our city and what information we want to know from them applying to the business license. And I very much would like to see the difference in Sonny between what we have now and what the state is requiring and what addendums we might want to add to the license to be sure it fits our city and our needs and how we live here. So it's handy for a one shop, but I would like to be sure it fits our city and our businesses. And I don't think that's too much. But if we, as you said, want to do it later, the changes, then we're going to pay for the travel and for them to come here and to do the upload. But as long as we do it during the upload, so I hope we really spend time looking at this and what's going to be helpful to our utility department, but also what fits our city that's different from the other cities. So I would very much like to see that in one of the workshops, please.
Yeah, you are reading our minds over here. That was a main question of ours. we brought it up immediately. And there were, I think, 3 or 4 different ways that we could organize that information with our fees. And definitely one of the first things that we're going to be looking at. So we can definitely add it as an item to be discussed because it's on our minds over here too.
Well, being in charge of utilities, I mean, you're dealing with it all the time, and I'm sure you have really good suggestions on what things could be worded or added to it. And so I'm excited to hear that because you deal with it all the time, and I'm sure you've tweaked it along the way. But anyway, I would like to be sure we have a say on how we want it to be and to keep it fair for our businesses and cities. So thank you. Appreciate that presentation. Do we need to vote, I don't think, on this tonight? Councilman Wassinger, sorry.
Okay. I move to authorize the mayor to sign the Business Licensing Services BLS agreement with Department of Revenue, DOR, Washington State, for a partnership to have business licenses issued and renewed through BLS in accordance with Chapter 19.020 RCW.
Second.
And a second by Councilman Wiesner. Any other comments? Councilman Servadius.
Thank you. Could we get clarification? The RCW that Councilmember Wassinger quoted from the screen is very different from what's in our packet.
Oh, no.
It's not, you didn't say it wrong. It's just there's 2 different RCWs listed. Mr. Goldman or Ms. Wolf?
Mr. Goldman, what is the correct number, please?
I'm looking it up.
The screen
right
and the
now.
packet have 2 different numbers.
35.90.020, I believe.
Yes. Here, I'll share screen.
Yeah, the 35 was left off of here. Yeah, it's 90, not 19. Yeah, it's 35.90.020.
Got it.
Thank you very much. Julie, were you able to get that?
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem, it is listed both ways in the packet, and I had it.
Okay. Just checking, make sure we have it right. Any other discussion? Call for the question. All those in favor, please raise your hand.
Councilmember Heisen's hand is raised.
All right, that makes it unanimous. Thank you very much. So on my printout, apparently from what's listed in our packet, we didn't do the interlocal agreement, the numbers. They're all consent, okay. All right. RingCentral 8B. Communication and IT Manager Sabrina Combs will present, please.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. One sec, I'm just going to share my screen. Oops, shared the wrong screen. Everybody see my RingCentral screen?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, sorry, I just wanted to make sure, thank you. Sometimes with our dual screens. I'm presenting tonight on the contract extension for RingCentral. As you may be aware, RingCentral provides the city's telephone, voicemail, messaging, and web conferencing tools. What we're using tonight to have this meeting, it provides staff with easy access, setup, reporting, and management of communication tools. I also have Derek Cove from RingCentral on the line as well to answer questions if we should get into more detail than the items I am available to address. So the current contract, City Council authorized the mayor to sign a contract on September 26, 2018 for 36 months. That contract expires in September 2021. The cost of that contract was $46,809.81 annually. And that contract did include some Polycom equipment for conference calls as well as 147 lines for the city. The contract extension options that we have available is the contract would extend for 36 months. The options are that we could do option A using the existing lines we have, and that is actually a challenge because we are adding more staff and we've had some changes. And so that existing plan would be $43,678.44 annually. If we do option B, where I've added some lines, that would be $55,252.44. So staff is recommending option B to provide additional phone lines for growth. And the way to formalize this would be for a motion to authorize the mayor to sign the contract. So are there any questions?
I'm sorry, I forgot to ask, there's no public comment?
That's correct, Mayor Pro Tem. No public comment was received on this item.
All right. Councilman Wassinger, please.
Yes, that additional option, between option A and B, I think it was roughly $12,000 more. How many more lines would that give us for that money?
So I asked for 50 additional lines.
Oh, I'm sorry, did you say 50? 50?
50, correct.
Okay.
Sorry if it's breaking up.
Oh, it's okay, thank you. That's my only question for now, thank you.
Councilman Servadius.
Thank you. That was my question as well. I'm fairly familiar with RingCentral since we went through the trenches getting them installed here. I'd be curious, I understand growth. Why don't we take on 10 additional lines or 25 additional lines? We can add lines at any time, and there's no reason to sign up for 3 years worth of payments. Let's just take on 10 additional lines and add 10 next year if we need them and go from there. Any reason we can't do that?
I don't see why not. I just set with growth that we've been dealing with internally with staff, but I'm more than happy to make that adjustment if that's what council would like to see.
Thank you.
Derek, you're on the line. Is there any reason that we couldn't do 10 lines?
Nope, not at all. If you guys choose 10, 15, 20, 500, your guys' choice.
Thank you, Derek.
Thank you. I would, we can move to, I'll see if anyone else has questions, but I think also, well, I was trying to reflect back when we got pricing for, I think, 147 or 150 lines originally, and our pricing was built off of that model. And so, yeah, if we can just add as we need, let's do that. Thank you. I'll pause.
Any other comments or questions? Councilman Servadius.
Thank you. Sabrina, do you think, based on the number, and I know when we built in that originally, we tried to keep about 20 extra lines. Have all 20 of those been used up?
Yeah, that's the challenge that we're having, Councilmember Servadius, is we've had a lot of new staff. We've had staff that's left and wanted to keep a line open temporarily. And so we have used up the lines. We are currently right now scrubbing through lines and reusing lines. And that's why I wanted to add some lines so that we have that availability.
Okay, just to clarify, you said we've had staff that left and we want to keep a line open?
Yeah, sometimes
not for those staff members that have left.
when staff, sorry, it's sometimes when staff departs, we leave their line open so that people have instructions of where they can go with those resources. And it's not a very long period, but sometimes we have that that we've done in the past, especially when it's a position that maybe we're not filling for a little bit. And so that's been an option that we've provided.
So do you think right now 10 additional lines, I mean, I truly think it's as simple as calling RingCentral and saying we need 5 more or 10 more. Is 10 sufficient to meet our needs?
I would say 10 should do it, yes.
So I moved to authorize the mayor to sign the RingCentral contract extension through September 30th, 2024, with the change of adding 10 lines instead of 50.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. A motion from Councilman Servadius and a second from Councilman Wassinger to move to authorize the mayor to sign the RingCentral contract extension through September 30th, 2024 with 10 additional lines at this time. Any other questions or comments?
Councilmember Heisen's hand is raised.
All right, Councilman Heisen, please.
Thank you. My question is, since we're approving this specifically with 10 lines, Sabrina, when you need to add additional lines, are you going to have to come to us to ask every time you do that, or will you be able to add them as needed?
I think it depends on what the cost is going to be to add those lines based on the way our procurement process works. But I can, look into that if we come to that in the future.
Okay.
I'm more than happy, Councilmember Heisen, I appreciate that question. I'm more than happy to be flexible with council around this.
Okay, well, same. I would hate for you to have to come back to us every time you need to add a few phone lines. I'd like for you to have maximum flexibility. So, yeah, I would be interested. And that makes sense based on the price structure. But that's just, yeah, not something I want to get, tangled up in too much. So please keep us posted.
Will do.
Any other comments? I'll call for the question. All in favor, please raise your hand.
Councilmember Heisen's hand is raised.
All right, it's unanimous. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
All right, bid award, American Construction for FDOC Breakwater. Project engineer Brett Arvison and Central Service Supervisor Sandra Place will present and respond to questions, please.
Lisa, would you put me up, please? Good evening. This is Brett Arvidsson. Yeah, we're here to talk about the FDOC Breakwater and Float Repair Project. Talk a little about the background. The city of Oak Harbor experienced damage to FDOC in a windstorm in February of 2020. Unfortunately, in early 2021, we had another event come through and further damage FDOC. Repair both these events is an insurance claim, so we were able to consolidate both of them into the same project, but they are under separate claims and deductibles. Next slide, please. This is showing some of the wind damage. That handrail that you see out there looks kind of off tilters now fell off, is on the bottom of the bay. It had to get fished out. Also, a lot of the damage was actually due to the tie rods and stuff, so it's something you can't see, but it was rather extensive. It was pretty extensive structural damage. Next slide, please. In addition, we had some Department of Commerce grant money for improvements to the marina and funds budgeted for that. This grant work did involve repairs and improvements of the type that required us to use the same kind of contractor we're planning on using for the repair project. So we felt that combining the work would result in cost efficiencies, though we had to keep both the grant work and the insurance work segregated. Next slide, please. This is showing the one of the things we wanted to fix. These are actually the pile guides, and if you notice, they're quite badly corroded and need to be replaced. It's probably the biggest repair. Next slide. We had some other items that were some Whaler repairs and some concrete work also. Excuse me. Anyway, we had our consulting firm Moffett Nickel prepare contract documents and permit packages. This is in-water work, which is very extensive permitting. We have HPAs and Corps of Engineers permit and that sort of thing. And we do have an in-water window, which actually starts in this month. The permit process with COVID and everything was extremely slow this year. We did not get our permits issued to the end of June. We did advertise the job immediately, and then bids were opened on August 3rd, 2021. Right now, we're in the process of talking about awarding construction. Once we get started, we do have to complete the project during their in-water window, which is this fall. Next slide, please. Anyway, we had two contractors submit bids on the project. We did publicly advertise it. One was American Construction Company at $344.30, which is the apparent low bidder, and Combined Construction at $1,043,000, and I think it's 60 cents. That's off my screen, sorry. Staff recommends award of the contract to the low bidder, American Construction Company. Next slide. Now we talked about bid items. As I said, we did have segregated 5 bid items in there. 2 of them were insurance related and 3 of them were grant related. The insurance work was what we called our base bid. 3 of the 5 items were optional based to maximize available funding. We kind of felt that we kind of asked for more than what we could probably afford, but until we got the prices in front, we really couldn't decide. And since the work did exceed the available funding, we select 3 items to proceed. Next slide, please. Item A is the 2020 storm-related damage, and item B is the 2021 storm-related damage. As I said, these are on separate deductibles. Item C is the pile guide replacement, which I showed you the picture of earlier. We consider that our highest priority right now. Item D was some rail replacements, and item C were some minor concrete repairs. Next slide. Like I say, items A and B are insurance related, and that's going to be $334,540.80 after tax. Of course, that is, we do have concurrence from the insurance company on this. Item C is the pile guides, as I said, is a priority, and that's $370,260 after tax, and this is within our $463,000 available budget. Items D and E exceeded the budget amounts by almost $200,000, so we've deleted them from consideration. Next slide. At this point, it's recommended to award the FDOC Breakwater and Float Repair Project to the parent low bidder, American Construction Incorporated, in the amount of $913,344.30, and proceed with bid items A, B, and C. Any questions?
Julie, I assume there's no public comment on this item?
That's correct, Mayor Pro Tem. We received no comment from the public on this item.
All right, thank you. Councilman Wiesner, please.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Mr. Arvidsson, I notice in the bid from American Construction that it does not include the cost of diving services.
The diving is coincidental to it, but we don't expect at this point. They're going to have to, basically, they're going to have to fish out the one guardrail, but we didn't see diving as being a major event.
And so how do we plan, though, to fund that when it's above and beyond this bid? Is that?
If that becomes necessary, then it would be a change order.
Okay, but we're not expecting any diving services to perform this actual work other than getting that guardrail out, is that correct?
That's correct.
All right, thank you.
Councilman Servadius.
Thank you. Mr. Arvidsson, just a term that you used in there, I'm familiar with the word, but not how you used it. You put the apparent low bidder, and that's not in our packet, but the recommended motion used that word. Just curious, why did you put apparent?
Everybody's apparent low bidder until we award the low. Right now, we've looked at it, we evaluated, and it's apparent low bidder until we actually award the project. So it's terminology that I used in the conversation, but it wasn't in the actual recommendation.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Albertson, has this company ever done any marine work repair for us before in the past?
They've never done any work for us in the past, but they're actually a quite well-known company for this type of work. Our consultant's quite familiar with them.
All right, thank you very much. Motion, anyone? Councilman Wassinger.
I move that the City Council award the contract for FDOC Breakwater and Float Repair Project to the low bidder, American Construction Company, Inc., with the amount bid of $913,344.30, and proceed with bid items A, B, and C.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Councilman Goebel, thank you. We have a motion from Councilman Wassinger and a second from Councilman Goebel. As it is stated, the recommended action to have our F-dock breakwater and float repair. Any other questions, discussion? Call for the question. All in favor, please raise your hand.
Councilmember Heisen's hand is raised.
All right, we'll make it unanimous again. Thank you, everyone. I am not seeing anything else unless I'm missing it. I will appreciate a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
We have a motion for Councilman Wiesner to adjourn. A second.
Second?
All those in favor, raise your hand.
Councilmember Heisen's hand is raised.
All right, we are adjourned. Thank you, gentlemen and